All right, so my waist canvas is attached and I've already threaded my needle with some of this yellow thread, and I'm gonna go ahead and start stitching. So again, it's not very different from doing Ida fabric, doing a cross stitch on a different type of fabric. It's really very much the same. It's just that you want to approach this in a strategic way to eliminate any opportunities for damage or for you to be unhappy with the result. So the number one thing and the main rule of thumb that I have, and I always teach my Tatreez 101 courses this way anyways, just because I think it's good practice for a variety of reasons. But in the case of the waist canvas, you're gonna wanna start from the very middle. And the reason you do that is to prevent any bubbling from happening. And if it does happen, it'll be super, super minimal and you won't really quite notice it or feel it when you remove the waist canvas. But for waist canvas in particular, starting from the middle is super imperative. This size type of waist canvas is not going to cause any issues, but I'm talking about like larger pieces. You will want to start in the middle as well. So when I do that, I'm going to go ahead and I knotted one end. I'm not going to worry too much about how I'm starting this. I'm just going to start in the middle and go from the back. And I'm going to do my first, essentially my first X. So I come from the back, I've gone ahead and pulled all the way so that the thread comes all the way to the end. Watch out for that basting thread. And I'm gonna go ahead and do my first X. So I will just go here and then do it, maybe come a little bit closer. And then I'm gonna basically cross my X. So I'm gonna come down here and cross my X. Okay. And this is your first X using waist canvas. So you want to make sure that you're not going too tight, because again, this waist canvas is going to be removed. So you're literally going to be, and I can actually show you a little bit, you're going to be using a pair of tweezers to just literally remove these strand by strand. That is what waist canvas is. And you're gonna wanna pull it from underneath the stitching. So you definitely don't wanna, you wanna make sure that you're stitching within the holes here, within the spaces. You don't wanna stitch directly into the waist canvas fibers, because that'll make it a little bit more difficult to remove. And you also don't wanna go too tight, because you want to be able to remove this from underneath these stitches. That said, you don't want to go too loose, because then your thread will be very, very loose. So as long as you're doing it, you know, in a generally solid way, like don't like pull so hard, but also don't have it too loose, you should be fine. And then you can also, so I'll go ahead and go do the next X. You can also do it the same sewing method that we do with Tatreez 101 or with basic Tatreez, where you don't need to go in and then pull and then come back out and pull. You can go in at the same time. This will depend and vary upon the fabric that you use. So the thicker the fabric, the more difficult it's going to be. So for example, jeans are going to be very, very difficult for you to do that, because the fabric is just so thick, your needle can't take it. When you are using thicker fabrics, make sure you use a longer and a thicker needle if possible. And for example, my thobe actually was done on a very, very thick fabric. And what I ended up doing, and what I ended up having to do, I couldn't figure out how to do this by myself. I would have to use a hoop. So a hoop can be a very, very good tool when you're working with really, really thick fabrics and you're determined to get that Tatreez on that fabric. But for something like this is very, very thin. I don't know if you can tell, but it's actually kind of see-through. This one should be fine to go as well. So just try whatever fabric you're using and just do your best. It might be a little bit finicky to work with at first, because you haven't done it with two different pieces of material back to each other, but eventually you'll get a hang of it as you practice. So I'll go ahead and continue stitching until I finish my design, and then I'll show you how I remove the waist canvas using a pair of tweezers.